This is Lemmy with RevZilla, here to talk to you today about LighTech Motorcycle Protection. You should be looking into LighTech protection products for your motorcycle if you're looking to protect it, but you also want it to look good as well. Now, these products are currently being made for a pretty wide variety of bikes by LighTech. Primarily, they're going to be focusing on sport and sporty machines. Now, you should know that some of these products are a little bit more universal in nature. So while I would always encourage you to use our bike finder, so we'll show you the things that fit your bike specifically, you should know that a couple of the items up here might be something too that are going to be universal fit and might be a little bit more broad in nature. Installation on these products, for the most part, is going to be 1 to 2 beards on our BSD, our beard scale of difficulty. We're talking about a fairly large swath of bikes, and we're also talking about a couple of different products here, but you should know that for the most part, if you're a pretty decent home mechanic with an average set of tools and a pretty decent knowledge of how to use them, you should be able to get most of this stuff onto your bike fairly quickly. So let's talk about LighTech just really briefly before we get into the nitty-gritty of some of the specifics on some of the products. LighTech is making pieces for your motorcycle that make it look like a jewel. And their protection products are really nice because typically, let's face it, in the sport bike world, bike protection stuff tends to be ugly. Who wants something that looks like a cardboard toilet paper roll hanging off the side of your motorcycle in an alluring white plastic? That's not always a great look. Some people want to dress their bike up a little bit more. So when LighTech really kind of decided to attack their bike protection products, rather than just make something that was purely about protecting the bike, they definitely nodded a little bit to making your bike look a little bit classier too. So we've got a couple of their products up here. I'd like to delve into some of the specifics of each of them, but overall, they tend to integrate really nicely with each other as well as with your motorcycle. So let's start down at the end here. You can see we've got a set of LighTech Spool Sliders down here, and these are kind of an interesting spool slider design. These are super duper light. You can see there are some anodized aluminum centerpieces here that you can color match to your motorcycle, again keeping with that unified look here. Now, while these are spool sliders, I'm going to say they're on the ragged edge of being a slider. This isn't like a Delrin plastic one where you're going to go down, you can use the thing 6 million times every time your bike hits the deck. Because they are concentrating a little bit on beauty here, lightweight is the order of the day, as well as making these things look good. So while they are going to offer you protection in a bit of a get-over, just keep in mind, these are all metal construction. So while they might not be the best choice for sliding, they're going to look the nicest on your motorcycle. Sliding down here, you can see we have some axle sliders. So these are also a pretty cool item. Now, when you think about, those of you guys on sport bikes, when you think about how much money you've poured into your suspension specifically, trying to get around the track, trying to move quickly, suspension plays a huge part of that. But really, the suspension of your bike is a very delicate mechanism in whole, and it's very exposed, especially in terms of a crash. So that's where these axle sliders come in. 2-piece sliders. These do have a beautiful centerpiece here. You can see we pop out here, machined aluminum. They look fantastic, and then you've got this hard plastic slider on here. Now, the slider, of course, is going to keep your suspension from being damaged as you're flying down the road and your bike is hitting the tarmac. So these axle sliders, again, can be kind of cheap insurance to make sure that all that hard work and money you've placed in your suspension doesn't go all for naught. Now, moving to the center of the table here, you can see we have some LighTech frame sliders. Now, we have a full detailed breakdown on these specifically, but there's a couple things that jump out to me. I think this could be the crown jewel, really, of LighTech's protection lineup. I love some of the design stuff that went into here. First, let's take a peek at how these are made. Look at how short these are. They don't stick very far off the motorcycle. And that's going to minimize chances of this acting like a lever. So once your bike goes down, there's not going to be as much concern as you would have with a longer slider of the bike rolling over and beginning to barrel roll or perhaps end over end. That's really important, I think. So this outer piece here, again, plastic slider, so it's going to slide nicely. You don't have to worry about it digging in. But one of the things I like here is this is a 3-piece slider. So the white piece you're looking at in here, it's actually a TPE ring here, thermoplastic elastomer, which is sort of like a combination of plastic and rubber. It helps absorb some of the impact as your bike actually comes down onto the ground. It works actually really similarly to the EPS liner in your helmet. It's a great way to sort of diffuse the energy of a crash over time and minimize the shock load being transferred to your bike. It's a really cool innovation. You don't see this very much at all in the protection game. The last thing I think is cool too is the third piece of these sliders, of course, is the base itself, made of magnesium, the lightest structural metal you can put your hands on. So I really love the design of the LighTech frame sliders, different than a lot of stuff in the market. As I had said, I feel like this is really the crown jewel sitting up here. So moving down here, you can see here we have some bar end sliders. Man, I really like these as well. These are just so nice looking. That nicely integrated colored aluminum ring here really brings a little bit of class to the end of your bike, especially those of you guys who have had either major wrecks or even just, garage tip overs. Sometimes your Barend Sliders start to look totally beat, and these are definitely going to be a replacement that's going to class up any motorcycle. There's also a little bit of heft to these, not crazy heavy, but it's enough weight in the right areas. These are also going to offer some vibration damping as well. So not only are you getting the protection in terms of the bike going down, but these should also too help to keep all of the buzz from coming through the bars. Might be able to quell a little bit of that if that's an issue you're having. Rounding things out, you can see here we have engine covers. So LighTech makes some really cool engine covers. I absolutely adore these things. We've talked about this before with a number of things. I mean, these guys are absolute experts when it comes to a milling machine. You can see the tooling patterns in here. They're absolutely beautiful. That's inside and out on these babies. They really are just very nicely machined. So anybody who works with metal, I'm sure you can appreciate the amount of work and craftsmanship that went into these. But one of the things I love about these, their actual design, I mean, you can see they're very, very short. These are just covering the bottom edge of the engine cover that they're going to sit on. They're very minimal. They don't really protrude too much. They don't draw your eye. And the other thing I like about it too is you'll notice up here there's some hardware. So what they've done here is because they're only using half of the cover, they're only covering the bottom half, you can actually install these without having to remove any engine cover. So that is a nice benefit there. But the fact that they are including slightly longer hardware, knowing full well that they're now adding a little bit of length to the fastener is nice. You don't have to consider getting the correct fastener, making sure you have the right grade or hardness. LighTech provides all that for you right there in the box. So installation is of course next on everybody's mind. Now, granted, some of these products are a little easier to install than others. Something like, say, a spool slider down here, going to be very easy. One beard in our BSD, or beard scale of difficulty. I mean, these are like a 5-minute install. Some of the items, again, like something like a frame slider, are going to take a little bit more work, especially if you have to cut some fairings in order to get them onto your motorcycle. Still though, nothing terribly difficult there. Hand tools should suffice for just about everything you see up here. The one caution I'll give you if you are going to be cutting up any fairings, I would say the addition of a hole saw for your drill will make your life a lot easier, especially if it is a fine-tooth hole saw. It'll let you cut your plastics without making a big gougey mess out of things, keep your paint looking good. Other than that though, installing these really is pretty simple, and most home mechanics should feel comfortable attacking this job. Overall, I love LighTech stuff. I love the fact they really consider how your bike's gonna look. Not just protection is what they're thinking about, they're also considering too that for the most of the time you're gonna be riding around your bike, you want it to look really nice. My opinion though is not the only game in town. If you're on a desktop or you're on one of those fancy internet cell phones, click that info button and check out a little bit more of what we have to offer, some detailed breakdowns on that, and also check out some rider reviews, see what some folks who are rocking LighTech Protection on their bike have to say about it. If you've got a question that I didn't answer or perhaps one of your fellow riders didn't get to, get in touch with one of our gear geeks, 877-792-9455. I'm Lemmy, I'm out of here.